you doing this week to save America?
Well, pretty much the same thing I do every week, but I'm the founder of Tennessee Citizens for State Sovereignty, and 7 days a week, I pretty much organizing, mobilizing, and educating the citizens of Tennessee and our legislators about the Constitution, the misconceptions of the Constitution, state rights, the authority that the state has over the federal government, and we have written and sponsored legislation that will create 5 different pathways in which to invoke nullification when the federal government, and that includes the Supreme Court, steps outside of its constitutional lane, which it does more often than not today.
Wait a minute. The Supremacy Clause says that whatever the federal government does, they are supreme. Isn't that how it's written in Article 6?
No, it says in pursuance. It starts out Constitution, comma, in pursuance thereof. So any law that is in pursuance of the Constitution is the law of the land. But when it violates the Constitution, the states have the authority and the duty to nullify and refuse to comply.
The states have the duty as the parent to tell their child to put their child back in the place, to fit them back inside the Constitution.
Right. The states are the creator. The federal government is what we created.
So when you educate the state legislators in Tennessee with this mindset, this perspective, to which they swore an oath to protect and defend, and they don't know much about, but what is the feedback? Or do they have aha moments, or are they refusing, or are they kind of in denial, or accepting?
Right. Well, some do. Some do get it when you show them the proof, quotes from the Federalist Papers and words right from our founders' mouths. But some are just in total denial. They believe the courts are the final arbiter of the Constitution, and they just stand by that no matter what facts or truth you show them. So,
as if we're an oligarchy waiting for the 9 folks in robes to come down from on high to tell us what our rights are, right?
Well, I say if our founders truly wanted the courts to be the final arbiter, why did they even create Article 1, Section 8, 9, and 10?
Right. Right. Or if everything that they did was because of the general welfare, why have the 18 enumerated powers?
Right.
Or that's awesome.
Or the Commerce Clause, or right. Yeah.
Right. Or especially the way the Commerce Clause is interpreted today.
Right.
So, I mean, you haven't, and I'm going to have you on several times because we have to tell your story. Or actually, I need to do a long form podcast because you formed this deep dive on state sovereignty, but you've been at this for a long time. You were a county commissioner. Is that correct?
I was a county commissioner. I was also the founder of Tennessee Against Common Core. And then, of course, I had a national group years ago to educate people on UN Agenda 21. So, yeah, I've been in this a long time, too long. I'm going to be 75 on Saturday. So I was hoping by this stage of the game, I would be able to sit back. But,
how's that retirement going, right?
Yeah, there's no sitting back.
So you said that you've had legislation passed. I mean, so you are under the hood, you know how sausage is made. And I talked the other day about how patient you are because it doesn't just happen overnight.
No. And that's what I try to tell a lot of the groups that I speak to, is pick your passion. What we do as conservatives, sometimes we try to solve world hunger. And we generally accomplish very little. So my passion was nullification because nullification addresses all the little issues that most of these groups are fighting against. So if you can win the nullification argument and get legislation passed, then every time the federal government steps out of line, you'll be able to, you've got the force behind you to say, no, we're not going to do that. And, you just got to keep plugging away.
Yeah. And the issue of nullification, it's about jurisdiction. It's really about you're responsible for this and you're not responsible for everything else. We are. And it's reminding them about responsibilities. I remember reading an article 10 years ago, maybe, an Indiana sheriff was defending a local farmer because the feds were coming in and threatening them. And it's like the sheriff understood the Constitution. The
Right.
sheriff understood the supremacy clause and the laws in pursuance thereof, and saying, look, you don't have jurisdiction here. We're going to help defend. Are you running into that in Tennessee? I would think you would in Tennessee, a state like that, where sheriffs are actually standing up and understanding that delineation.
Well, it's just like any other state. Some do, some don't.
Right.
That's the sad truth. But that happens in every state, and that's where people need to start educating their sheriffs, meeting with the sheriffs, and educating them on what not only their responsibility but their duty.
Yes.
And that's a word that we have to start embedding in the minds of our legislators and our sheriffs, that you have a duty.
Yes.
To keep the federal government on the right path. And we failed that duty for decades.
So there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated about what's going on in the country, but they're not up off the couch yet. They're not engaged somewhere. What would you tell them?
Just, if you want things to change, they're not going to change unless you get up and do something about it. If you think that the next president's going to save you or the federal government's going to save you, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It has to happen at the local level, starting right from the school boards, right on up to your state legislators. And, you just have to stay with it. You can't give up. That's one thing I have to give the left a lot of credit for. They never give up. They never give up. Of course, they generally have the funding behind them that affords them the ability to keep on going year after year. But it doesn't take money to win these battles. It doesn't. It just takes perseverance, stick-to-itiveness. I'm building this organization. I've been doing it for the past year, and we have no money, none. We have no money. It's all just getting out there, talking to people. I accept every invitation that comes my way to talk to people. I work closely with many of our legislators, and hopefully we'll get this bill passed next year. Last year, the bill couldn't even get a second in the Senate committee, and it failed. This year, we not only got a first, we got a second. We also turned some senators that were going to vote against this legislation last year have decided to vote in support of the legislation. And it was because of the pressure from the constituents that they got. It was not because they all of a sudden had to come to Jesus. It's because their constituents were demanding that they support this legislation. And that was due to, I have 30 county leaders. So each one of those county leaders is responsible to do just that, work with the legislators, put the pressure on them, get the word out, and educate people. I can't educate everyone in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
So that's why we're bringing on county leaders as well.
So when these legislators hear from the people, they're thinking, I'm either going to rely upon the donor class to stay reelected, or the fact that all these people, my constituents, are contacting me right now. I better listen to them because at the end of the day, I need votes. So
Right.
It is that pressure. Tell me, you mentioned offline here to me on the phone, how many emails were sent to some of these legislators? How many was that?
Just in one day. And we kind of focus on the committees. And when one of our bills that we're supporting, and again, it's the nullification bill, and we also support gold and silver as legal tender. And when those bills go to committee, we start slamming the telephones, sending emails. And just one day, we work with partner groups in the state. And one of our partner groups has a system that we can send automated emails to legislators. And in one day, we sent 7,000 emails to just the committee members. So, yeah. So
That is awesome.
Had an effect. It definitely had an effect.
Give me a brief overview. What is the nullification bill? What are you nullifying?
Well, we're nullifying unconstitutional mandates, laws, regulations, executive agreements, executive orders. A lot of people don't realize that
Yeah,
executive orders only control the executive branch of the government.
that's right.
They don't even, they think that once an executive order that, a president can do anything he wants and through executive order, and it's not true. But this legislation, like I said, it lays out 5 different pathways in which to invoke nullification. And one of those 5 pathways are the people. It only requires a petition of 2,000 signatures of people from Tennessee, registered voters. We would submit that to the assembly. A bill would be created to nullify whatever the issue is we have. And these bills do not go to committee, because we all know that good bills die in committee.
Right.
These bills go immediately to the full House and the full Senate.
So if 2,000 people sign a petition on an issue, then it'll go to the entire state representative.
It'll go to it. Right. I could give it to an assembly member, probably the sponsor of the bill is who I would go to and say,
Right.
hey. And we also have 5 constitutional experts on our team and 1 consultant from the 10th Amendment Center.
Mhm.
So before we would, proceed with a request to nullify, we would confer with, and one of our experts is the person, Jeffrey Cobble. He's a lawyer here in Tennessee, and he actually wrote this legislation. And it's an excellent, just the first Article 1 through Article 8 of the legislation is basically describing the constitutional rights and duties that a state has when it comes to the federal government and our authority. So it's a good education in the Constitution as well.
Yeah. So the 10th Amendment basically says if you were not granted this responsibility here in this Constitution, then it is a responsibility still left up to the states or to the people. And
Right.
left up to the states, meaning if it's not granted to the state by the people in the state constitution, then it is up to the people. So you're basically saying that these issues, they're not your responsibility. 2,000 people sign a petition. We want this infringement cut off. State legislature, stand up and speak up and represent us.
Right. And that's just one of the 5 different pathways. And, our founders made it very clear that the authorities, the powers given to the federal government were very few and
defined.
Right. And the powers given to the states are indefinite. So these are the things that, I give presentations, and it's just amazing. The light bulbs, the expressions on people's faces, especially when you talk about executive orders and the different clauses, which I cover in my presentations, and just educate people on how much we've been deceived and lied to.
Well, because the president runs the country. It's like, no, he presides over one branch of government.
One branch of government, right?
Goodness gracious. Karen.
Law-making powers.
Yeah, right. Karen, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do for our country. May God bless you, and may you have a wonderful, happy birthday on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to have you stay with me here, but I'm going to have you on again and again and again, because you are doing amazing work in Tennessee.